Trump Defense Secretary and former Fox News Weekend co-host Pete Hegseth is once again lashing out at the media after another bombshell scandal was unearthed involving another signal chat, another group chat, in which Hegseth shared classified military information with his wife, his brother, and his personal attorney. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. Folks, this is stunning stuff. I mean, Pete Hegseth, if it wasn't clear before, it is perfectly clear now. Pete Hegseth is a walking national security breach. I'm going to give you his reaction first, and then we'll read the bombshell New York Times story. But this is Pete Hegseth reacting to this latest scandal, and he's lashing out at the media.
What do you want to say, sir, about the signal chat controversy?
You know, what a big surprise that a few leakers get fired and suddenly a bunch of hit pieces come out from the same media that peddled the Russia hoax. Won't get back their Pulitzers. They got Pulitzers for a bunch of lies. Pulitzers for a bunch of lies. And on hoaxes, time and time and time again. And as they peddle those lies, no one ever calls them on it. See, this is what the media does. They take anonymous sources from disgruntled former employees, and then they try to slash and burn people and ruin their reputations. Not going to work with me, because we're changing the Defense Department, putting the Pentagon back in the hands of warfighters, and anonymous smears from disgruntled former employees on old news doesn't matter. So I'm happy to be here at the Easter egg roll with my dad and my kids, because, you know, this is what we're doing it for. These kids right here. This is why we're fighting the fake news media. This is why we're fighting slash and burn Democrats. This is why we're fighting hoaxsters. This group, this group right here, full of hoaxsters that peddle anonymous sources from leakers with axes to grind, and then you put it all together as if it's some news story. And when we know it, we know exactly what it is. So I'm really proud of what we're doing for the president, fighting hard across the board, and I'm going to go roll some Easter eggs with my kids. Thank you very much.
That was super awkward and embarrassing. I don't know if he'd had a few before he started speaking to the camera. Of course, Pete Hegseth has long had reported struggles with alcohol abuse. Not sure if he's dealing with that now, but that was an extremely strange reaction to that. Again, a meltdown. He seemed visibly nervous, desperate to deflect. But let's go into the actual bombshell report, courtesy of the New York Times. Hegseth said to have shared attack details in second signal chat. The defense secretary sent sensitive information about strikes in Yemen to an encrypted group chat that included his wife and brother, people familiar with the matter said. Pete Hegseth shared detailed information about the forthcoming strikes in Yemen on March 15th in a private signal group chat that included his wife, brother, and personal lawyer, according to 4 people with knowledge of the chat. Some of those people said that the information Hegseth shared on the signal chat included the flight schedules for the F-A-18 Hornets targeting the Houthis in Yemen, essentially the same attack plans that he shared on a separate signal chat that same day that mistakenly included the editor of The Atlantic, Signalgate. Hegseth's wife, Jennifer, a former Fox News producer, is not a Defense Department employee, but she has traveled with him overseas and drawn criticism for accompanying her husband to sensitive meetings with foreign leaders. Hegseth's brother Phil and Tim Parlatore, who continues to serve as his personal attorney, both have jobs at the Pentagon, but it's not clear why either of them would need to know about upcoming military strikes aimed at the Houthis in Yemen. The previously unreported existence of a second signal chat in which Hegseth shared highly sensitive military information is the latest in a series of developments that have put his management and judgment under scrutiny. Unlike the chat in which The Atlantic was mistakenly included, the newly revealed one was created by Hegseth. It included his wife and about a dozen other people from his personal and professional inner circle. Before his confirmation as defense secretary, and was named Defense/Team Huddle, the people familiar with the chat said. He used his private phone rather than his government one to access the signal chat. The continued inclusion, following Hegseth's confirmation of his wife, brother, and personal lawyer, none of whom had any apparent reason to be briefed on operational details of a military operation as it was getting underway, is sure to raise further questions about his adherence to security protocols. The chat revealed by The Atlantic in March was created by Donald Trump's national security advisor, Mike Waltz, so that the most senior national security officials across the executive branch, such as the vice president, the director of national intelligence, and Mr. Hegseth, could coordinate among themselves and their deputies ahead of the U.S. attacks. Waltz took responsibility for inadvertently adding Jeffrey Goldberg, the editor of The Atlantic, to the chat. He called it the Houthi PC small group to reflect the presence of members of the administration's Principals Committee who came together to discuss the most sensitive and important national security issues. Hegseth created the separate signal group initially as a forum for discussing routine administrative or scheduling information, two of the people familiar with the chat said. The people said Hegseth typically did not use the chat to discuss sensitive military operations and said it did not include other cabinet-level officials. Hegseth shared information about the Yemen strikes in the defense team huddle chat at roughly the same time he was putting the same details in the other signal group chat that included U.S. officials and the Atlantic, the people familiar with Hegseth's chat group said. The Yemen strikes, designed to punish Houthi fighters for attacking international cargo ships passing through the Red Sea, were among the first big military strikes of Hegseth's tenure. After the Atlantic disclosed that Hegseth had used Waltz's signal group to communicate details of the strikes as they were being launched, the Trump administration said he had not shared war plans or any classified information, an assertion that was viewed with tremendous skepticism by national security experts. In the case of Hegseth's signal group, a U.S. official declined to comment on whether Hegseth shared detailed targeting information, but maintained that there was no national security breach. Quote, "The truth is there's an informal group chat that started before the confirmation of his closest advisors," the official said. Nothing classified was ever discussed on the chat. Of course, we have no reason to believe them because they also said that the signalgate details did not constitute highly sensitive or classified information, so we know they're full of shit. Sean Parnell, the chief Pentagon spokesman, did not respond to several requests for comment before this article was published. After it was published, Parnell responded on social media, quote, "Another day, another old story, back from the dead. There was no classified information in any signal chat, no matter how many ways they try to write the story." The defense team huddle signal chat until recently included about a dozen of Hegseth's top aides, including Joe Casper, Hegseth's chief of staff, and Mr. Parnell. The chat also included two senior advisors to Hegseth, Dan Caldwell and Darren Selnick, who were accused of leaking unauthorized information last week and were fired. Caldwell and Selnick were among three former top Pentagon officials who proclaimed their innocence in a public statement on Saturday in response to the leak inquiry that led to their dismissals. On Sunday, another former Defense Department official, John Oyot, who left the department last week, said in an opinion essay for Politico that the Pentagon, quote, "is in disarray under Hegseth's leadership," and suggested Trump should remove him. When Mr. Goldberg released the details of what Hegseth put into the signal chat created by Waltz regarding the upcoming strikes in Yemen, Trump defended him and said he'd done nothing wrong. In a statement, Anna Kelly, a White House spokeswoman, did the same after the latest revelation. Quote, "No matter how many times the legacy media tries to resurrect the same non-story, they can't change the fact that no classified information was shared." Some congressional Democrats said it was fresh proof that Hegseth should be removed. Quote, "Every day he stays in his job is another day our troops' lives are endangered by his singular stupidity," said Senator Tammy Duckworth, Democrat of Illinois, and a combat veteran. And I love the fact that they're speaking so bluntly about this. That's good. More of that, please. Senator Jack Reed of Rhode Island, the senior Democrat on the Armed Services Committee, added, quote, "If true, this incident is another troubling example of Hegseth's reckless disregard for the laws and protocols that every other military service member is required to follow." While the signal chat created by Waltz for senior officials was criticized for sharing details of a military operation on an encrypted but unclassified app, the participants, other than Goldberg of The Atlantic, were senior government officials with reason to track the progress of the attack. But some of the participants in the group chat created by Hegseth were not officials with any apparent need to be given real-time information on the details of the operation. Jennifer Hegseth has drawn attention for the access her husband has given her. Hegseth brought her to 2 meetings with foreign military counterparts in February and early March where sensitive information was discussed, a development first reported by the Wall Street Journal. Mr. Parlator, who's been Hegseth's personal lawyer for the last 8 years, was commissioned as a Navy commander in the Judge Advocacy Corps, the JAG Corps, about a week before the Yemen strikes were initiated. In an interview before rejoining the military, Parlator told the New York Times that he would work with Hegseth's office to improve training for the military's uniformed lawyers. Hegseth's brother Phil works inside the Pentagon as a liaison to the Department of Homeland Security and as a senior advisor to the Defense Secretary. One person familiar with the chat said Hegseth's aides had warned him a day or two before the Yemen strikes not to discuss such sensitive operational details in his signal group chat, which, while encrypted, is not considered as secure as government channels typically used for discussing highly sensitive war planning and combat operations. It's unclear how Hegseth, a veteran and former Fox News host who, before his confirmation in January, had never previously served in high-level government positions, responded to those warnings. Many of those in Hegseth's inner circle during his first months in the Pentagon were combat veterans with deep experience in the military, but little firsthand knowledge of how the government operates at the highest levels. Several of the staff members encouraged Hegseth to move the work-related matters in his private signal chat to his government phone, but Hegseth never made the transition, according to some of the people familiar with the chat who spoke on condition of anonymity to discuss internal deliberations. The Pentagon's acting inspector general announced earlier this month that he would review Hegseth's Yemen strike disclosures on the signal chat that included top Trump aides. Quote, the objective of this evaluation is to determine the extent to which the Secretary of Defense and other DoD personnel complied with DoD policies and procedures for the use of a commercial messaging application for official business, the acting inspector general said in a notification letter to Hegseth. It's not clear whether the acting inspector general has uncovered the signal chat that included Hegseth's wife and other advisors. The inspector general started the review in response to a joint bipartisan request from Senator Roger Wicker of Mississippi, the Republican chairman of the Armed Services Committee, and Jack Reed, that's the Democratic ranking member. Beyond the controversy in the signal chat, Hegseth's office has been shaken by the sudden firings of Caldwell, Selnick, and Colin Carroll, all top advisors to the defense secretary. They were escorted from the Pentagon last week after being accused of leaking sensitive information. The dismissals and turmoil surrounding the inspector general's investigation has raised tensions and prompted talk of more resignations, according to current and former defense officials. Among those considering leaving are Casper, Hegseth's chief of staff, who helped lead the leak investigation that resulted in his colleague's dismissal, but has not been implicated in wrongdoing, according to senior defense officials. In the wake of the report in The Atlantic disclosing the first signal chat, Hegseth and other senior administration officials repeatedly denied that any classified information was shared among the participants. And again, you saw that here in the first clip that we played. He's basically regurgitating the same line. Quote, nobody was texting warplanes, and that's all I have to say about that, Hegseth told reporters. But other former senior defense officials said texts describing launch times and type of aircraft being employed before a strike would be classified information that, if leaked to the enemy, could have jeopardized the pilots' lives. So there you have it, folks. Not one signalgate, but now two signalgates, two separate chats in which Pete Hegseth, the defense secretary, potentially endangered the lives of American citizens by using unauthorized, insecure applications to convey information. And in the second app, the second signalgate, he started the chat, right? He wasn't just a participant in it. He created it, and he voluntarily shared this information with people who did not need to have it. It's true that at the very least in that first signalgate chat, all of the participants, Tulsi Gabbard, Mike Waltz, and J.D. Vance and others, it makes sense that they would need to know this sort of information or be entitled to know this information. But Hegseth's wife, his brother, his personal attorney? Nah, sorry, that doesn't make much sense. And that explains why he had such a visibly nervous meltdown when confronted with this during the White House Easter egg ceremony. So Democrats definitely need to be pouncing on this. There need to be investigations. There need to be calls for investigations. Any sort of armed services committee in the House or the Senate, Democrats need to be calling and drawing attention to this. And if Democrats ever retake the House in the midterms, they should launch high-profile, public, in-depth investigations into Hegseth's incompetence and potential malfeasance. And we'll definitely be discussing this in subsequent stories because the White House is not handling this well. But in the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.